Ladies and gentlemen, let us direct our collective and unwavering attention to a transformation so profound, so extraordinarily comprehensive in its scope, that it compels us to reconsider everything we thought we understood about player development, physical conditioning, and the trajectory of elite athletic careers in professional basketball. We are witnessing, in real time, the complete metamorphosis of Aliyah Boston, a player who is already recognized as exceptional, already celebrated as a generational talent, but who has now ascended to a level that few could have predicted and even fewer can fully comprehend. This is not merely about incremental improvement or the natural progression of a young athlete maturing into her prime years. This is about a fundamental reinvention of body composition, skill set, tactical versatility, and competitive mentality that positions her not just as a cornerstone of the Indiana Fever franchise, but as a legitimate candidate for the most prestigious individual honors the Women's National Basketball Association has to offer. Let me be unequivocally clear about what I am forecasting here, because this is not hyperbole, this is not reactionary enthusiasm born of a few impressive performances in an alternative league setting. This is a measured, analytically grounded projection based on observable evidence and undeniable performance metrics. I am calling Aliyah Boston to earn all WNBA first-team honors next season. And I do not believe this is a remotely controversial or outlandish statement to make. In fact, given the trajectory she is currently on, given the dramatic evolution we are witnessing in the Unrivaled league, it would be more surprising if she did not achieve this distinction. Furthermore, I believe we could very realistically be looking at a scenario where the Indiana Fever places two players on the all-WNBA first team, an accomplishment that would speak volumes about the franchise's trajectory and the synergistic relationship between its two most important assets. The Fever organization is ascending, and the manner in which Aliyah Boston has been performing, the physical condition she has achieved, is nothing short of extraordinary. If you have been following her performances in Unrivaled, you will have observed sequences that simply would not have been possible for the Aliyah Boston of previous seasons. Consider, if you will, a specific defensive possession that encapsulates everything about her transformation. She finds herself matched up on the perimeter against Alyssa, a player renowned for her physicality, her ability to bully opponents, and her relentless attacking mentality. Thomas attempts to exploit what she perceives as a mismatch, attempting to burn Boston with speed and agility on the switch. It does not matter. Boston stays with her stride for stride, maintaining perfect defensive positioning. And when Thomas elevates for the finish, Boston meets her at the summit and emphatically swats the attempt away. But here is where the sequence becomes truly revealing about Boston's mindset and competitive fire. Following the blocked shot, Thomas, in frustration, grabs Boston's arm, attempting to hook it and potentially draw a foul or simply impede her movement. Boston's response is immediate and uncompromising. She swings her arm forcefully to break free of the contact, sending an unmistakable message that she will not be held, grabbed, or impeded in any fashion. This is not the passive, accommodating rookie who entered the league. This is a player who has discovered her physical dominance and is absolutely unafraid to assert it against any opponent, regardless of reputation or veteran status. And of all the players for this to happen against, it could not have occurred with a more fitting recipient than Alyssa, a player whose own physical style has often pushed the boundaries of acceptable contact. The physical transformation that Boston has undergone is unprecedented in its scope and rapidity. She has never, at any point in her professional or collegiate career, been in this kind of elite physical condition. When she entered the WNBA, she was built as a bruising center, powerful, strong, capable of establishing deep post position and finishing through contact. She was effective in that role, but her mobility was limited. Her perimeter defense was a liability, and her offensive game was largely confined to the painted area. The remarkable aspect of her current transformation is that she has dramatically increased her speed, agility, and quickness without sacrificing any of the foundational strength that made her effective in the first place. This is extraordinarily difficult to achieve. Typically, when players undergo body composition changes that emphasize speed and lateral movement, they lose some degree of power and physicality. Boston has somehow managed to retain every ounce of her bruising strength while simultaneously becoming quick enough to defend on the perimeter. We are now observing a player who can legitimately guard multiple positions across the defensive spectrum. She can match up against traditional post players and use her strength and positioning to neutralize them. She can switch onto perimeter players, guards and wings, and use her improved footwork and lateral quickness to stay in front of them. She is playing what can only be described as bully ball on the interior, using her physicality to create space and finish through contact, while simultaneously demonstrating the ability to burn slower, bigger defenders on the wing with her improved speed and handle. Her footwork, which was always technically sound and fundamentally excellent, has now been enhanced with an additional gear of quickness that makes her offensive repertoire exponentially more dangerous. She has developed a reliable three-point shot with a remarkably quick release, a dimension to her game that was virtually non-existent in her early professional years. Her mid-range game, which was always present to some degree, is now being deployed with confidence and consistency. She is pulling these shots without hesitation, and the release is so quick that defenders have minimal time to contest. This is the player that the Fever organization envisioned when they selected her with the #1 overall pick. This is the elite, top-tier WNBA talent that was expected to dominate from the moment she set foot in the league. She was an all-star starter as a rookie, a distinction that speaks to the immediate impact and recognition she garnered. She was projected to be a top 15 player league-wide in her second season, and while she showed flashes of that potential, the fit alongside Caitlin Clark was not immediately seamless. The Indiana Fever, by necessity and by design, adopted a Caitlin Clark-centric offensive system, a high-pace, perimeter-oriented, guard-driven attack that maximized Clark's generational playmaking and scoring abilities. This system, while incredibly effective in generating offense and creating highlight reel moments, did not initially optimize Boston's skill set. It required her to adjust her game to become more of a complementary piece rather than a primary option, and to develop skills, particularly in the short roll and as a screener in pick-and-roll actions that were not central to her collegiate or early professional identity. It took her approximately half a season to fully comprehend and adjust to this new role, to understand the timing, the spacing, and the reads required to thrive in a Clark-driven system. But since that adjustment period concluded, since she internalized the requirements of this offensive framework, Aliyah Boston has been nothing short of terrifying as a complementary offensive weapon. Her ability to execute the short roll, that crucial middle action where the screener receives the ball before reaching the rim and must make instantaneous decisions about finishing, passing, or resetting, has become elite. She is adding new dimensions to her game with each passing season, each off-season training block, each competitive opportunity. Her perimeter defense, which was once a glaring weakness that opposing teams could exploit with switching actions, has improved to the point where it is now genuinely credible and, in many matchups, legitimately excellent. We have reached a stage in her development where the persistent narrative about the Fever needing to acquire a true big or a traditional rim-protecting center is no longer valid. Aliyah Boston is the modern center. She is the archetype of what a contemporary big should be in today's pace and space, positionless basketball environment. If we were to draw an analogy to the men's game, she is the equivalent of a Draymond Green if Green were 6'9" or 6'10" instead of his actual height. She possesses that same versatility, that same defensive switchability, that same basketball intelligence and playmaking ability from the center position. If the Fever organization desires additional size to complement her, the focus should not be on replacing her at the 5, but rather on finding a versatile 4 who can provide shooting, secondary rim protection, and defensive length. A player like Alana Smith, who offers floor spacing and positional size, would be the ideal complement to Boston's skill set, allowing her to function as the offensive hub and defensive anchor while surrounded by spacing and shooting. Boston's speed and athleticism have reached levels that are genuinely shocking when observed in competitive settings. There were sequences in Unrivaled where she was outrunning Awak Kuyer, a player known for her own mobility and transition speed. This is not something that was part of Boston's identity in previous years. She is now a genuinely quick, big, capable of running the floor in transition and beating opponents down the court for easy finishes. Her ability to guard players like Alyssa Thomas on the perimeter is no longer a situational necessity that she struggles through. It is now a legitimate strength. When next season arrives and she faces elite wings like Aja Wilson, she will have the physical tools and the defensive acumen to credibly contest and disrupt their offensive actions. This represents a complete and total reinvention of her game, a transformation of everything that defined her as a player just 2 years ago. Ironically, during last year's Unrivaled season, there were legitimate concerns about the direction of her development. It appeared at that time that she had lost significant elements of her back-to-the-basket game. Her post-up ability seemed diminished. Her finishing around the rim was inconsistent and, if we are being entirely candid, at times horrendous. There were real questions about whether the shift toward a more perimeter-oriented face-up style was coming at the expense of the interior dominance that had been her calling card. Those concerns have been comprehensively answered and emphatically dismissed. Boston has not abandoned her interior game. She has enhanced it with additional dimensions that make her virtually impossible to game plan against. The competitive fire and edge that she displayed in that sequence against Alyssa Thomas, where she swatted the shot and then physically shrugged off Thomas's attempt to grab her before walking to the bench and talking directly at her opponent. This is precisely the mentality that elevates good players to great ones. This is the swagger and confidence of a player who knows she is ascending to elite status and is unafraid to let the world know it. There will inevitably be critics who characterize Boston as a dirty player, but this accusation is typically leveled by those who simply cannot guard her, who are frustrated by her physicality and dominance. The reality is that being physical, being aggressive, and playing with an edge is not the same as being dirty or dangerous. Let us draw a clear distinction here because context and nuance matter immensely in these assessments. I do not care if Aliyah Boston is overly physical. I do not care if she throws elbows in the post to create space. I do not care if she sets moving screens or uses her body aggressively to establish position. These are all within the accepted range of physical play in professional basketball. What would cross the line into unacceptable territory would be actions that genuinely endanger opponents, diving at knees, yanking shoulders in dangerous ways, or executing plays designed to injure rather than to compete. Those actions have no place in the sport, but physicality, aggression, and playing with an edge, those are virtues, not vices. The comparison to Alyssa Thomas is instructive here because Thomas herself is one of the most physical players in the league. I do not object to Thomas playing rugby-style basketball, using her body to create advantages and initiate contact. What I object to are the moments when she crosses from physicality into genuinely dangerous play, when she goes through someone's knee, when she chokeslams an opponent like Angel Reese, when she delivers a shoulder to Caitlin Clark's jaw that nearly knocks her unconscious. Those are not examples of acceptable physical play. Those are examples of reckless disregard for opponent safety. Boston giving that physicality back to Thomas, matching her intensity, and refusing to be bullied is not problematic. It is exactly what competitive basketball should look like. Thomas initiates the vast majority of the physical confrontations she is involved in, and if she receives the same treatment in return, that is simply the natural consequence of her own approach to the game. When we consider Boston's potential impact alongside Caitlin Clark, the possibilities become genuinely exhilarating. You could make a compelling argument that the pick-and-roll partnership between Boston and Clark represents the highest basketball IQ two-player action in the entire WNBA. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about this assessment. It is simply the most intelligent, most conceptually sound pick and roll in the league. When these two players are executing this action in downhill attacking situations, the defensive options available to opponents are all deeply problematic. Boston's ability to roll to the rim, to execute the short roll and make instantaneous reads, to drift to open spaces, and, if her current developmental trajectory continues, to become a legitimate shooting threat from the perimeter, creates an impossible calculus for defenders. If Boston develops into the player I believe she is capable of becoming, it will unlock everything for Caitlin Clark's offensive game. It will eliminate the ability of defenses to simply double-team Clark every possession without consequence. We witnessed this exact scenario play out in last year's playoff series against the Las Vegas Aces. The Aces made a deliberate strategic decision to allow Aliyah Boston to score open layups for an entire half rather than give Caitlin Clark any breathing room. They doubled Clark relentlessly, conceding easy interior finishes to Boston, gambling that Boston would not be efficient enough or assertive enough to make them pay. At halftime, the Aces adjusted and began switching everything defensively, creating mismatches across the board. But here is where coaching failures became glaringly apparent. The Fever had multiple possessions where the switching created obviously exploitable mismatches. Dana Evans guarding Aliyah Boston, Aja Wilson matched up on Kelsey Mitchell, and rather than attacking these advantages immediately and ruthlessly, the offensive system had players setting additional screens to switch back to their assigned matchups. This was not a Christy Sides decision. Despite her many coaching shortcomings, this was a Stephanie White special, a my system means more than winning coaching failure. The refusal to simply exploit the mismatches that were being gifted by the defense, the insistence on running predetermined actions rather than reading and attacking the defense in real time was an egregious example of coaching rigidity undermining player talent. But when Boston and Clark are given the freedom to operate, when the coaching allows them to play off each other and make reads rather than forcing predetermined actions, the results are extraordinary. Aliyah Boston is going to take over. She is absolutely going to dominate. The way she is moving, the physical condition she has achieved, the confidence with which she is playing, these are not transient improvements or temporary peaks. This is a player who has fundamentally altered her body, her skill set, and her mentality. You simply do not see players improve their quickness and lateral mobility to this degree, particularly players who were never out of shape or lacking in conditioning to begin with. Boston was always a hard worker, always someone who took her conditioning seriously, but this represents a different level entirely. She must be engaging in specialized speed work, focused agility training, and plyometric conditioning that goes far beyond standard professional athlete maintenance. The quickness with which her jump shot is now coming off, the confidence with which she is pulling it. These suggest either that she always possessed this capability, but lacked the freedom or the confidence to deploy it under previous coaching regimes, or that she has made dramatic technical improvements to her shooting mechanics that have unlocked a faster release. It is entirely possible that she was always this quick, this capable, but that the systems she played within at South Carolina under Dawn Staley and in her early professional years under Christy Sides did not grant her the freedom to showcase these abilities on the perimeter. Now, playing in Unrivaled with the freedom to experiment, to play alongside a guard like Kelsey Plum, who, while an excellent player, represents a completely inferior version of Caitlin Clark in terms of pick-and-roll playmaking and court vision, Boston is demonstrating just how much she can contribute when given the freedom and the touches. If she is generating this level of production playing alongside Plum, imagine what she will produce when reunited with Clark, a superior playmaker, a superior shooter, and a superior decision maker in every conceivable pick and roll read. The potential is genuinely frightening for opposing defenses. If these two players, Boston and Clark, see the floor together next season with no lockout, with a full training camp and preseason to build chemistry and refine their two-man game, with coaching that actually allows them to exploit mismatches and make reads rather than running rigid, predetermined actions, the Indiana Fever will be a legitimate championship contender. The pieces are in place. The talent is undeniable. The only remaining variables are health, coaching competence, and the resolution of the labor situation that currently threatens the entire season. Tell me what you truly think. Are we witnessing the emergence of a genuine all-WNBA first-team talent in Aliyah Boston? Will the partnership between her and Caitlin Clark become the most dominant two-player combination in the league? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe because this transformation is ongoing and the full realization of Boston's potential is a story that will define the next era of Indiana Fever basketball.